2, 1, 0.
Everybody, it's Monday night, it's 7 o'clock, which means it's time for Monday Night Nerd. I hope you're doing well. My name's Myles Cosplay. If you don't know me now, where you been? We're on episode 77. We're on the Ray Bork number of podcasts. I'm so happy we're here. Tonight, we're going to be talking about video games movies from the 90s. The first batch of video game movies was early 90s, starting in 1993, and we're going to talk about 5 that came out in the 90s. But boy, we have a lot to talk about before we get there, and let's jump right into it, folks. If you know what the date is, it is November 11th. So for anybody who is listening now or in the future, happy Remembrance Day, folks. Lest we forget those people who sacrificed their lives, and for those who are currently serving in the military, we thank you very, very much for your service. We greatly appreciate what you guys do. I have some friends in my life who are part of the military, and I want to wish them thank you for everything that you guys and gals do. Let's jump into a little bit of news before we get into the main part of the show. Folks, I went to a concert. I went to a concert this week, and you're probably wondering, you didn't talk about that concert that much. Well, that's because I didn't know the artist. I went to a concert where I didn't know anything about the artist, really, and that's because my wife wanted to go. This was a concert for my wife. She's a really big fan of this artist, and she said, I want to go, and no one else wants to go. And I have to admit, I give my wife many compliments here on the show, and I have to say her choice in entertainment, even though it might not be something that I would traditionally watch, go to, whatever you want to say, she's been pretty accurate on good things. And last week, we went out to the Opera House in Toronto and we saw Myles Smith. I had no idea who Myles Smith was, besides that she showed me a couple of his songs when she bought the tickets, and a couple on the drive-in, actually. She played a couple songs, and they're good. I had no problem with them. It was, if you've never heard Myles Smith before, he's an African-American gentleman, plays sort of like a Mumford & Sons style songs, and I gotta admit, it was a really good show. He's really energetic. He put on a hell of a show. Came out in the crowd and sang one of his songs that everybody was going nuts. Was really emotional. It was the last show on his tour, and I think this was his realization of the next time he goes on tour, because he's already announced he's doing a tour in 2025, he's moving to a bigger venue. He's going to be playing History in Toronto, which is a big jump from the Opera House. The Opera House is about 600 people. History is almost 5,000. So he's definitely moving up, and he was very emotional knowing that this is probably one of the last small venues he's going to be playing. They ended up giving him a 3 times platinum for one of his songs, a big plaque. He was so emotional and so happy. I'm really glad I went, even though I barely knew any of his songs. I knew one of them a little bit, but yeah, overall, it was a hell of a show, and everybody seemed to have a lot of fun. So if you're a fan of music, if you're a fan of that Mumford & Sons style, check out Myles Smith. He's actually really good. I'm probably going to put a song of his on my playlist, because I got to admit, I'm a fan of the gentleman now. So that was a good, I think it was Thursday. That was a good Thursday night out. Let's jump into the big bad world of Marvel, because we got about 4 things that we need to talk about when it comes up. 3 things. 3 things. Yeah, 3 things that we got to talk about in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. The first thing is I watched Agatha all along. I finished it, and I'm going to tell you right now, we're going to talk a little bit about spoilers. So if you don't want anything to be spoiled, stop it now, and I will wave my arms you know what? Don't stop the feed. Just mute it. And when we get to the end, I will wave my arms frantically in the air, and that's how you know to come back on. So we started the series with not knowing a lot of where Agatha is because, hang on, I'm just going to adjust my chair, but there we go. We didn't really know a lot about what happened to Agatha. We know that after WandaVision, she kind of got put back into that Stepford Wives style life and she went off, and that's all we know. Well, we come back to her, and she is in that Stepford Wife lifestyle, and she wants to get her powers back. She kind of kicks out of it, and she wants to get her powers back. And the only way to do that is to go down the witch's road, and she needs some fellow witches to do it. There is a gentleman that young gentleman that joins her coven, and they got to bring them along on his witch's road. There's a bunch of trials, and some witches make it, some don't, and we find out that, spoilers, the boy or the gentleman that is following them along is actually Wiccan, who is one of Wanda's children. We find out in one of the episodes that the spirit of Wiccan is now in this boy, who I believe his name's Charlie in the actual boy, but Wiccan has sort of taken over and has become this boy. Really good casting. I think he kills it. Agatha is a great character. The actress who plays her does an incredible job. And then we finally meet, at the end of the series, Lady Death, which is really cool to see, especially if you're a comic book fan from back in the day. This is a very important character that the comic book fans freaked out when they saw it, but the general Marvel fans don't really understand it completely. The reason that Lady Death is such an important character is that if you read the Infinity Gauntlet or the Infinity Wars series when it first came out, Thanos is in love with Lady Death, and he does the Infinity Stones and snaps his fingers to try to impress her. That is very important when you think about what they've done with the MCU so far, and having Thanos do that. Has she played into that somehow? Is she going to play into it in the future? Because we know Secret Wars is going to be coming up in the future. And Secret Wars, from what it looks like and what it is in the comics, everybody from past and present is all going to play a factor in this. So you thought Endgame's roster was big? Wait until we get to Secret Wars. And knowing that Lady Death might play a factor in that, a big factor, makes me really excited as a comic book fan. But I gotta admit, when I went into Agatha, if you guys have seen a previous episode where I talked about movies that everyone loves that I don't, a lot of those movies were based on magic and witches and stuff like that. I'm not a fan of that type of movie, music, whatever. It's never been my wheelhouse. But I gotta admit, this one caught my attention. It really sucked me into, I think Marvel really has a problem benefit, sort of. It's sort of in the middle, depending on how you look at it, where a lot of their shows have that. It's not a MacGuffin, but there's always a character or something that is shown as one thing, but by the end it's twisted to something else. And I knew that was going to be coming up in this, just from the way it started. And I knew it was coming, but I still enjoyed how we got there and the twist that we took to get to the end. So I got to say, Agatha all along was probably one of my favorites, and I really didn't think it would be. If you told me back in the day when all these shows were announced, and even, if you took all the shows that have come out, I would have told you Bucky and Falcon was going to be my favorite because I'm such a Cap fan. But it's a good show, but Agatha and Wanda have killed it. Those are my top two, I think. So if you're a fan of anything Marvel, this is something that might bring you back in if you've lapsed a bit, and I completely understand why you have. But definitely give Agatha a chance. It's a great show. The cast is great. The story is great. The twists are great. Give it a shot. I truly mean that, and that is somebody who wasn't thinking they were going to be a fan of it. Next, we have to jump into two new trailers that came out this week, and that is, first off, the Thunderbolts trailer, which really didn't show a ton of different things from the first trailer. It was a little bit of a recap. There was a couple new additions. We really saw them interact a lot more, which was nice. We did see that they have now taken over Avengers Tower because obviously Mr. Stark is no longer around. I definitely understand why people are saying that this is going to feel very Suicide Squad. This is very Guardians of the Galaxy. This is a big group of people trying to do things and trying to interact and have their fights and their interests and stuff. Anytime you get a team-up movie, you're going to have that now. It's a formula that works. I'm not going to sit there and argue with it because you know what? I loved all 3 Guardians movies. So I can't argue with how they're doing it. I think this is probably going to be way more interesting of a movie than I think people are giving credit for. I think having a lot of those B and C villains that we kind of forgot about, Taskmaster, Red Soldier, yeah, Red Soldier. They were great villains, but I think they need to come into this, and I think that's going to expand them a lot more. And I'm very interested to see how they're going to do that in this movie. I especially am interested on what the asterisk is at the end of the title. It is Thunderbolts asterisk. So I'm interested to see what that has to do with anything. Other than Thunderbolts, they also released a new Captain America Brave New World trailer, which again is more of a refresh than anything else. It has a very Winter Soldier vibe to it. The only big difference between this one is you really get to see a full shot of Harrison Ford as Red Hulk. And I don't care what anyone says, he looks good. I am super interested in how he's going to play a factor into the Marvel Universe. I don't know how they're going to make him Hulk. Is he going to inject himself? Is this going to be somebody injecting him? Is that something the terrorist group is trying to do, is get him to become a Hulk? I'm very interested how they're going to do this. They could have him stay as Hulk. They could have him do a Bruce Banner Hulk type thing where he's going to go in and out. I'm very, very intrigued to see what they're going to do. Plus, again, as I said earlier, I am a Cap fan more than any other MCU character. So having Falcon, having Bucky, having all those guys in this is going to be a lot of fun. I'm more excited about this one than probably any other Marvel movie. That is all of our Marvel news. The only other news I have to talk about is I did something that I don't normally do. As you're probably well aware, I am not someone who binges TV shows. I do not have the patience. I do not have the time to sit there and binge 20 episodes of any show. I don't care if it's WandaVision. I don't care if it's anything Marvel. I can't do it. I can watch a couple episodes and then I'm usually taking off. However, I can binge a video game. And I did this weekend. I binged it to the point that I platinumed it in about 12 hours. And that game is Maneater. If you guys have never heard of Maneater, this was a game that came out probably right when the PS5 came out. This is basically Jaws the game. You play as a shark and you grow up eating other fish and humans, and you have a bunch of different people who are trying to hunt you. You got to kill them. You got different body types and stuff that'll help you with different things. It was really fun, and it was short. Like I said, it only took about 12 hours. I could probably, and now that I know what I'm doing, I probably could have beat it in 10, if not less. But guys, give Maneater a shot. If you're a fan of Jaws, it's a pretty fun game. Like, you're just swimming around as a shark in all these different areas, and you can jump over a whole bunch of stuff. It's really fun, and I had a lot of fun. It was mindlessly boring, and I think that's something, as I've said many times on this show, I miss those type of games. Like, I love Red Dead Redemption. I've not touched Red Dead Redemption 2 since I first got it because it's so in-depth and so many things I have to care about. I'm 36. I don't have the time or the mental capacity to learn all these backstories and things about these games that it bugs me. I need something mindless and boring, and Maneater gave me exactly what I needed. So go check out Maneater. It's a lot of fun. It's on PS5. Okay. Andre said, "Yeah, Cap side of things is easily my earpiece." Yeah, it is. It is a lot of fun. I think the Cap version of the story in the entire MCU is probably the best part. I think it's honestly, I love Iron Man's story. I love the way it ended, but I think Cap's story of him and Peggy and the love that he couldn't have, and then he gets it. I still can't watch that last scene of Endgame where he gives Falcon the shield and goes back in time to Peggy. I bawl every time because it's the perfect ending. But yeah, such a good side of the Marvel, the MCU. That is all the news. The only last thing I have to talk about is this Saturday, if you're in the Toronto area, I will be at the Mississauga Comic Expo. This was something I did last year. A friend of mine works at the Mississauga Library, and she asked me to come over, and I'm going to be hosting the cosplay red carpet for the second year in a row. It's a lot of fun seeing the kids dressed up in their amazing cosplay. I will be rocking Mario as always because Mario is always a big hit out there. It's at the Hazel McKillen Central Library in Mississauga. It is Friday the 15th. It's also Saturday the 16th. I will just be there on the 16th, though. I will not be there on the Friday, but it will be open to you. There are a lot of events. They had a bunch of comic book artists and stuff last year, and it will be a lot of fun again this year. I know that it's grown, which makes me very happy to see that they're getting bigger, and I hope it keeps growing because the Mississauga Library is a great foundation, and I hope they get a lot more funding, and I hope they get a lot bigger every single year. Folks, we're at the end of the news. We're at the 17-minute mark. Let's jump into the sponsor. If you're still here, by the way, if you're still here, I would greatly appreciate if you could hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, all those things that every single one of us on this channel asks you to do, because not just because it helps us grow as a channel, but it tells me that you like this channel and you like this specific type of video, because that's what I need to know. I don't want to do all these episodes. I love doing them no matter what, but if I can do some episodes that I know you guys will like, that makes things even better. So hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. It means a ton to me. We're probably going to be on YouTube solo now. We're probably not going to be back on Facebook or on Twitch or anything because it seems like the live stream is doing great on here just the way it is. I don't want to mess it up. So this will be the home of Monday Night Nerd from now on. So yeah, hit that subscribe, hit that. It means a lot. And one last thing, as always, folks, we have a sponsor here on this podcast. We always do every single week. 77 episodes in, every single week we have a sponsor. And that sponsor is my amazing, beautiful, incredible wife. She will always be the sponsor on this podcast. And I know, again, you're probably getting sick of hearing it, but it is the truth. It is the absolute truth that I am a very different person now because of her. There have been a lot of things over the past couple of weeks that I would not have the positive outlook on if it wasn't for her. And I truly, truly mean that. And I feel like the only way, I tell her it every single day, but I truly feel like I need to say it on here so everyone knows my wife is incredible and has made me a better person. So, hon, I love you. You will always be my sponsor. Even if I get someone giving me cash, I would love someone to give me cash. It means a lot to me. I love you, hon. Thank you very much. Okay, folks, let me get a quick drink of the H2O. And let's jump in to the main event. Folks, you are here because we're going to talk about video game movies from the 90s. Now, for all you kiddos back in the day, you guys are used to the Mario Brothers movie. You're used to Warcraft movie, which I know wasn't good, but still, you're used to Assassin's Creed and all these amazing things. Again, especially the Mario movie, which was amazing as a Mario fan. But back in the 90s was when all this started. That was the first time when a Hollywood studio went, these video games are getting a lot of attention from these kids. Maybe we should take these video games and put them over here on the silver screen And maybe we'll get some of those video game fans into the movies. And logically, that makes a lot of sense. Execution-wise, that's a different story. Now, we're probably not going to go into too much detail on each one of these because I'm probably going to do a full episode on a couple of these because I'm such a fan of these movies. They may not be live Monday Night Nerds, but I think going on in the future, I definitely want to do a couple long versions of these movies because, you know, everybody's got reviews for these movies, but I feel like I have my own take on some of these that some other reviewers may not have. So let's start things off. Andre in chat says 90s video game movies were a struggle, to say the least. And again, I don't want to bury the lead. I don't want everybody to be like, I'm going to sit here and crap on these movies. There are some things about these movies that are great. There are some that are not. So let's start things off with the first video game movie ever made. The first one. I don't believe there was a Pong movie. I don't believe there was a Pac-Man movie. The first movie was in 1993, May of 1993, and that was the original Super Mario Brothers movie. Now, this poster is pretty dope looking, in my opinion. This ain't no game. What a tagline. And we've got two people who kind of look like the Mario Brothers. I ain't seeing much red, and I ain't seeing much green. I'm seeing a mustache, and I'm seeing a backwards ball cap, and I'm seeing some weird boots. Okay, this is Mario. All right, let's jump into little details here. So Super Mario Bros. Was released in May 1993, was with Hollywood Pictures, and this is an odd movie to say the least. But here's the thing. I gotta give them a little bit of leeway because we have to take ourselves back to 1992 because this was released in 93, which means it was made in 92. The only games that they had to work with when it came to the Mario franchise was Mario Bros. 1, 2, 3 for the NES, and Super Mario World came out in 1990. So you've got 3 games for an NES, which had pretty much no backstory except Mario saves the princess from a big lizard. And you've got Super Mario World, which is pretty much the same concept, but you have the introduction of Dinosaur World and Yoshi and all those things. So, to give them the benefit of the doubt, they didn't have a ton to work with. Because, let's be honest, if you're a Hollywood studio and you sit back and you got kids going, we need a movie of this game. The game, again, is an Italian plumber going into work pipes, eating mushrooms, battling a giant lizard, and saving a princess. That is a very weird storyline, which, unless you're a kid who plays the game and really doesn't care about the details of the story, you would have a lot of problems trying to figure out how to make that work. So, I give them a benefit of the doubt on that. The story of this movie is kind of similar to the new Mario movie, and that is there's an alternate world underneath New York City in a pipe, or it's in a wall, and they need a crystal to get into it, and the land on the other side is basically a version of New York City where the dinosaurs have continued to grow and evolve, and now they are basically human dinosaur hybrids. Not exactly what the video game is about, but again, I could see where they kind of went, we got to move this a little bit around because that original concept's kind of weird. This movie is bad, though. And again, I will give the benefit of the doubt. The casting alone is an odd choice. So we've got Bob Hoskins, who plays Mario on the left, and that is Bob Hoskins from Who Framed Roger Rabbit. We have, and I'm going to kiss this guy's butt because I love him as an actor, John Leguizamo as Luigi. John Leguizamo from the voice of an Ice Age. He's been on a ton of different shows. He's John Wick. An incredible, incredible actor. If you're not a fan of John Leguizamo, go check out his one-man show. He did a one-man show before he became an actor, and it will. Thank you, Alex. Spawn is another one. He plays Violator. John Leguizamo's one-man show is incredible. It's called Freak. It is unbelievable. I am such a fan of John Leguizamo. I want him to come to a con in here so I can bow at him. I'm such a fan of his. Sorry. And then we also have why do we have Bowser played as a human first off? We've got Dennis Hopper playing Bowser. And he's a human, though, because he's a dinosaur, but he's evolved into a human. See where the problems start to come up? Basically, Mario and Luigi meet Princess Daisy, not Peach, and they go into this alternate world. They battle Bowser. They meet other things that are named after Mario characters, like the Goombas, which are not little mushroom-sized things that Mario steps on. They are 7-8 foot guys in giant trench coats. I don't know. The admission when they first get there, they get arrested when they first get to the new Dino York, I believe it is. And they go in and they have to give their names. And this is one of the things that made the Mario fans the most frustrated, is that they finally reveal Mario and Luigi's last name. Are you ready? Are you ready for this? Drum roll. Brrr. Their last name is Mario. Mario, and Luigi Mario. If you didn't have a good name or you didn't have a real last name, just don't even do it. Just cut the scene. There's nothing about that interrogation scene that mattered in the story at all. So why they chose that, I have no idea. Yoshi makes an appearance in this. He looks like a small dinosaur, looks like a small raptor. Perfect. He's an animatronic. It looks great. It's the only good thing about it. There's a King Toadstool, Princess Daisy's father, and he's just a mushroom fungus that is all over the world. Hey, if you've ever watched anything about this, documentary-wise, or talked to the and seen interviews about Bob Hoskins and John Leguizamo and Dennis Hopper, this was a nightmare to film. It was so many issues. The writers fought, the directors fought. There's a scene when they're driving a truck, Hoskins and Leguizamo, and they are wasted. And I don't mean wasted in the movie. I mean literally drunk driving this thing because they're so upset with how this movie went. Yeah, it's a bad movie from that side of it. However, I can turn my brain off and enjoy this movie for the chaos that it is. And it's exactly what it is. If you're going in looking for everything to be exactly like the video game, go watch the new one, because that's pretty darn accurate. If you want a weird alternate reality version of it, go check this one out. It's pretty fun. In fact, the boots that they are wearing are known as Thwomp boots, and that Thwomp is the big rock guy that drops in Mario. I want to make those for my Luigi cosplay, because those boots look dope. And I've seen little 3D shots of what they look like now. They're beat up and destroyed because they're like 30 years old. but they looked so cool, and I would love to do it just to see how many people get the reference. It's one of those little Easter egg part of the cosplays that I would love to do, but they look like they're a giant pain in the butt to build. So, future problem. So we are running through Super Mario World or Super Mario Bros. It's a big problem. It's a big problem. But if you're willing to turn your brain off and give it the benefit of the doubt of these people are doing it for the first time, they don't understand how to do or video game movies and using references from video games that may not make sense, it works. Just turn your brain off and enjoy. So that's 1993, and by the way, didn't do that great. Didn't do that great at the box office. It wasn't a flop, but it wasn't as great as they had hoped. So, just over a year later, in 1994, in November 1994, Imperial Entertainment Group brought out the second video game movie, and this is one that is often overlooked for good reason. Double Dragon. Now, if you've played the game, you know what Double Dragon is. It's one of the first, if not the first, side-scroll beat-em-ups, similar to Turtles in Time. It has two guys. They witness a woman get punched in the stomach and kidnapped. They side-scroll, beat the crap out of everybody, trying to rescue the girl. Pretty simple, makes a lot of sense. I think we've probably had 1,000 movies like that since then that have that premise. However, again, these movies and these filmmakers decided we need more, so we're going to turn this into a Mad Max-style world that these two guys are going to be fighting through to get the second half of a pendant, medallion. Yeah, so the whole story of this is we have our two leads, and they are trying to get the other half of the medallion, which is at the bottom of the poster. The other half is held by Mr. Robert Patrick from Terminator 2. With a really white flat top haircut, which is just perfectly doesn't fit him. This is a movie, this is a franchise that's about fighting. It's Double Dragon. Look at the poses. We got martial artists. No, we don't. This is a whole movie that is basically Escape from LA meets Mad Max meets Escape from LA, New York, all those movies. Yeah, it's just, again, they've taken this one's easy. You can take the source material and make it into a movie, but they fell apart and tried to do something different. The cityscape is every apocalyptic movie from the 90s. The two actors at the top, you've got Mark Dacros, who you probably know, who's in the red, who you probably know from Iron Chef, Take the Hair Off, Iron Chef. And our other lead is Scott Wolf, who you've probably seen. I can't remember what he's in. He's in a bunch of 90s movies. And then the female lead is Alyssa Milano. And again, Robert Patrick. Yeah, the cast isn't too bad in this, but again, they really have nothing to work with. Again, this is a simple story that could just be kidnapping. Yeah, I know, right? Yeah, he's actually got a pretty good IMDb. Yeah, go check him out. He's actually on a bunch of stuff. This suffers from something that I think plagued a lot of kids' movies. I shouldn't say kids' movies, martial arts movies. This plagued Three Ninjas. This plagued Surf Ninjas, if you want to say that's a different thing. It's kind of the same thing. These movies are very much influenced by the TMNT movies. You can tell by the fight choreography. You can tell by the shots. You can tell by the humor. These are a lot of joke fighting that they're just making jokes as they're fighting through this entire thing. And it works for the Turtles because it's the Ninja Turtles, and that's kind of their personality. It doesn't work for Double Dragon. In the end, they get the medallion and they kill Robert Patrick. this is a movie that nobody cares about and it's very forgotten. It's forgotten so much that if you really want to watch it, it's on YouTube for free. Just type in Double Dragon the movie. The whole thing's there uncut. So go watch it if you want to watch it. I say watch any of the other ones personally. But yeah, this was one that I saw back in the day, and I was like, "There's no way this is Double Dragon. Like this is just some weird name is the same." Nope. This was based off the video game. See, Alex says in chat, Double Dragon game didn't have much of a story either, but it didn't need a bunch of story. It was guy punches girl in stomach, kidnaps her. Two guys go around beating everybody up trying to rescue her. That's kind of a story. Like you don't need giant backstories in some of this. I think John Wick has proved that in the past couple of years. You don't need some big, long, intricate story. Dog dies, go for revenge. That kind of is it. And this is why it didn't need a movie. Exactly. It didn't need a movie, but they tried anyways. So, Double Dragon, if you want to watch it, go onto YouTube. Go check it out. It's a weird choice of a movie, especially after something so popular like Mario. To go to something, and it's a different studio, but having the second movie be something which wasn't big at the time. It had a nostalgic factor, but no, I wouldn't have picked this franchise. John Wick had a great backstory. Not in the first one, not a ton though. The first one is pretty much dog died. This guy's got a reputation of killing a bunch of people. It's not until the later movies that they really go into his backstory. Okay, so we're done 2. Now, we've realized the side-scrolling Mario movie is a bad choice. We've got the side-scrolling fighting movie is a bad choice. Well, then let's just do a movie where it's just fighting. That makes sense. We're going to have a bunch of different characters, and they're all going to battle in sort of a tournament, and they're going to... That's a movie, right? Just fight scene. That sounds like perfect. Well, we tried that the next year. Actually, the same year. 1 month later. So Double Dragon came out in November 94 and December 94 from Universal and Columbia Pictures. We've got Street Fighter the movie. Here we go, folks. Street Fighter the movie. This came out before Mortal Kombat came out. And if I was the Mortal Kombat producers, I would be going, oh no. Because this did not do well. I don't know why. Well, this is a fun one. Crystal says she's never seen it. This is a fun movie. It is not a Street Fighter movie, though. I'm sorry. Let me go through this quickly. So if you're a fan of Street Fighter, you know the series is basically Ryu, and Ryu is going through his struggles and going through the tournament, and he is going to face M. Bison at the end. That is M. Bison. That's Ryu. This is about Colonel Guile, and Colonel Guile is played by the Muscles from Brussels, Jean-Claude Van Damme. And when you say, Mike, who is your favorite martial artist? I am a JCVD fan so much. I used to have all of his movies on DVD. When they started going to like $5, I bought every Jean-Claude Van Damme movie. He is my martial artist. So to find out he is in a video game movie about one of my favorite franchises, man, was I hyped. Even at the tender age of like 8, I was still going nuts over this. However, not being able to watch it when it came out until many years later, wow, this was bad. So this movie is not like the video game. Well, it kind of is. So this video game, M. Bison wants to take over the world. That's kind of what Street Fighter is. However, he's trying to be saved. He's trying to be beaten by Colonel Guile in the U.S. military. Now, the cast in this is all over the place, and Alex just brought up the most important one. We have Colonel Guile being played by Jean-Claude Van Damme. We have the great Raul Julia from the Addams Family fame playing M. Bison in sadly his last ever role. His kids were big fans of the franchise and said they would love him to do this movie, and sadly this was his last movie. Other notable characters in this is Kylie Minogue. Kylie Minogue is in this, playing Cammy. Doesn't look like the character in the video game, don't worry. I'll save you guys checking it out online. She doesn't wear the traditional Cammy costume. You can stop typing. Now, this is another movie that is just, I don't understand why they decided to do it this way. This movie is all about Colonel Guile getting to M. Bison. However, as you can tell by the poster, there are several other characters from the franchise that make appearances in this. We have E. Honda. With E. Honda. We have Chun-Li. We have Balrog. We have Cammy. We have Zangief. We have Sagat, and we have Vega. Yes, Ming-Na Wen is Cammy, is Chun-Li. I forgot about that. Yes, she is. That is Mulan. So, you can tell by the poster, all of these characters are in their traditional uniforms from the video game, and they're in traditional poses from the video game. Most of these characters are in these costumes for about 5 minutes. This is a movie that has everybody out of their traditional costume until the last minute of the movie, which is just upsetting because that's part of the reason why everybody came to this, is to see them in the iconic outfits. The game, as I said, is basically Ryu and Ken, mostly Ryu. They are laughable in this, as there are many reviewers out there who have done a video review of these movies, and when they finally find out that Ryu and Ken are Ryu and Ken, they all laugh because it's not, you wouldn't even expect them to be. Their character is nothing like the video game. The martial arts in this is okay. The story is very forgettable. Jean-Claude Van Damme is Jean-Claude Van Damme, so if you're a fan of his, you'll enjoy his performance. The two things in this movie, and Andre has brought up one of the best parts of the movie, and that is M. Bison kidnaps Chun-Li, and it is a throwaway scene. It doesn't really matter. She is in his personal boudoir room, whatever you want to call it. She is handcuffed, and they're discussing it. They're discussing how M. Bison, back in the day, destroyed her village, and she is seeking revenge. And she goes through this big monologue about how it meant so much to her, and how she's here to exact revenge on him. And Raul Julia as M. Bison says one of the best lines in any movie, and one of the coldest too, is he says, "When M. Bison graced your village, it was the most important day of your life. But to me, it was Tuesday." And it is such a cold line, and his delivery is perfect. I love it. The only other one in this movie, and it is a funny line, is Mr. Zangief. And it is Chun-Li and E. Honda and Balrog are all together in a group. They are investigative reporters. They hijack a truck and put explosives in it and start letting it free fall or free ride down a hill, and it's going to crash into M. Bison and all of his evil minions. And as it's going down the hill, there is a video feed that M. Bison, Zangief, and all them are watching of the news broadcast, and they see that, oh, it's them, and they see the truck coming towards them. And you can see the panic in their eyes. And Zangief looks at the truck, sees the truck out the window, looks at the TV and goes, "Quick, change the channel." And everyone looks at him. And again, the delivery is perfect. These are lines that should not be in this movie. They should be in something a lot better. But anyways, this movie is cringeworthy unless you enjoy Jean-Claude Van Damme. And also, by the way, they made a video game out of this. If you are a fan of Street Fighter, you know this is one of the best fighting franchises ever. And part of that is because of the amazing controls of the game, the design, the art style of the characters. Well, this version of the game took a page from the Mortal Kombat book and digitized the actors and made it so you are playing as the actors, as the characters. And you can just imagine how different that game plays compared to the hand-drawn and animated characters from the franchise. So, the game played terribly. I own it on PlayStation because it was like $5. And secondly, the name of the game is Street Fighter the Movie, the game. One of the dumbest titles you could ever name a game. The movie, the game. Like, why? Anyways, enough about this. If you're a Jean-Claude Van Damme fan, go watch this movie. It's a fun movie, but it's also another version of a 90s movie that just should not have been made, in my opinion. So, we have done Mario. We've done Double Dragon. We've done Street Fighter. But now, we get into the good stuff. Because in August 1995, we were gifted one of, if not the best video game movie ever. And that is competing with what has come out recently. Mortal frickin' Kombat. And I am a die-hard Mortal Kombat fan. I own every Mortal Kombat game that has ever been made, including Mythologies, including Special Forces. I own every Mortal Kombat game. I'm a fan. And when I say this movie is exactly what they needed to do, it's an understatement. Now, this is... Oh, and we're going to get to that, Alex. Believe me. Now, when you look at this poster, everything kind of looks the same, but kind of different. Now, based on the last couple movies, that is usually a negative. However, in this case, it is one of the best parts of it. So we have our main characters, Raiden, Sub-Zero, Liu Kang, Johnny Cage, Sonya, Kano, Goro, and Scorpion. You have all of the main characters in what is kind of what they normally would wear in the game. Some have been tweaked a bit. Raiden doesn't always wear the hat. Sonya is not in green. She's pretty much in black the whole time. Johnny is not shirtless with his fight pants. So there are changes in there, but they're all so good. And a lot of that has to do with the incredible cast. You've got Robin Shaw as Liu Kang. You've got Christopher Lambert, Highlander, as Raiden. You've got Brigitte Wilson as Sonya Blade. And you have the incredible Lyndon Ashby as Johnny Cage. And last but not least, on this poster, you're missing one key person, and that is Kerry Tagawa as Shang Tsung. And when I say this guy changed the character to the point that they brought him back as a playable character in Mortal Kombat 11. This is also a movie that allowed them to do some things differently And it worked. It wasn't completely changing the entire franchise. They just made things better. By the way, let me start things off. If you've never played Mortal Kombat, you have no idea what this movie is. Let's start things off. By the way, so we've got Shang Tsung, who is holding a tournament in his realm. And what the tournament is Earthrealm has their fighters, Outworld has their fighters. They battle, and after they battle in Mortal Kombat, and when Outworld wins 10 Mortal Kombats, they can invade Earthrealm and take over. They have won 9. This is the 10th tournament. Your Earth fighters are Sonya, Johnny, and Liu, and Outworld has pretty much everybody else. So, the whole movie is basically what Street Fighter should have been. It's basically a tournament fighting movie. However, there is a shit ton of backstory, which works, and there's a shit ton of backstory that is brand new, that never existed and would not exist, and changed the franchise of the game. For example, if you didn't realize, Kano did not have an Australian accent. He got it from this movie. That was not a thing until this movie came out. The friendship of Scorpion and Sub-Zero did not exist until this movie. This was the first time you saw them side by side. They were bitter rivals in the other games. But this was the first time. Mind you, they say they're under Shang Tsung's power, but still. This is the first time you saw them side by side. If you played a newer game, you see that all the time now. I have probably watched this about 100 times, and I'm not exaggerating. I can quote this movie word for word. It's probably one of, if not my favorite movies of all time. This movie gets something done that a lot of movies struggle with, and it's something I call the Jubilee effect. And I call it that because it's something that I really noticed in the X-Men animated series. And that was, in the X-Men animated series, the focus of the series was Jubilee. And the reason they made it about Jubilee is because Jubilee acted like the audience. She didn't understand the world. She didn't understand what was going on. So you got to walk around with Jubilee, and Jubilee asked the questions that they thought the audience would want to know. Johnny is that character in this movie. The difference between Jubilee and Johnny is Jubilee's a kid. And Jubilee asked a lot of questions. They weren't stupid, but they were redundant. Johnny is written so well in this movie. He asked the important questions in the scene. When they get to the island, where are we? I don't know. Perfect. They don't know where they are. Goes up against Goro. He's cocky. Okay, he must know something. He's asking questions. He's having his talk with Shang Tsung and explaining, like, I've got this idea of how to beat Goro when everyone else is scared. That makes the audience trust Johnny. It makes people who don't understand the franchise understand that Johnny's not just a joke character. He's probably, and shown in later games, one of the strongest characters. He's smart. He just acts like an idiot in the movies, and that's what everybody perceives him as, which is a great way to write the character. So Johnny is written absolutely perfect in this. Everyone has their motivations. They're all clearly explained from the beginning. The animatronics of Goro are still amazing even today. He's slow walking, and that's fine. But it's almost a perfect movie. You've got iconic lines from this movie that still are resonating today. And you've got a theme song that is still referenced today. The theme song that everyone knows, that that's from the movie. That's not from the game. Everyone thinks it's anybody that's not a big Mortal Kombat fan goes, what's the Mortal Kombat song? No, that's the Mortal Kombat movie song. They've never used that in a game. Why? I don't bloody know. I would love to find out why Techno Syndrome has not used that song or allowed them to use that song outside of the movie. Because as Alex said, the soundtrack alone was worth the price of entry. This is a movie that had 3 soundtracks. 3. This had the music from the movie, which is music that was actually in the movie. Music written about the movie. So there's songs that they've brought in for that they feel is appropriate for the movie. And then they also released, Techno Syndrome released the original soundtrack. And what the original soundtrack is, every character from the movie has their own song, which is something I've never heard of anywhere else. And it's probably one of the best of the albums. So a lot has come from this movie, and this deserves a lot of praise. There is one thing that I don't think a lot of people know, and I want to tell you this because it is a very interesting fact that will impact the next movie and movies in the future. This movie was directed by Paul Wes Anderson. Or not Paul, let me try that again. This movie was directed by Paul W.S. Anderson. And if you know the name Paul W.S. Anderson, you know that he is the one who directed the Resident Evil movies. Now, why is that important? Well, this was his first big movie. He did one movie before this, but this was his first big break. He was then asked to go direct the next Mortal Kombat movie, which we'll talk about in a second. However, he turned them down. Now, why did he turn them down? He just didn't enjoy the script, and he didn't enjoy, what was being told of what was going to happen in the movie. So they got another director. I believe the director of the next movie we're going to talk about, Annihilation, was one of the production assistants or one of the production managers. We all know, if you're a Mortal Kombat fan, what happened to that movie. Why is this important about the future? Well, as I said, Paul W.S. Anderson directed the Resident Evil movies. Directed all of the Resident Evil movies. Now, a lot of people who don't know it say he did it because he was dating and soon to be marrying Milla Jovovich, who plays the lead character in the Resident Evil movies, Alice. They didn't get married until like the 7th movie. The reason he did all the Resident Evil movies is because he felt so bad that he dropped the ball on Mortal Kombat Annihilation and didn't come back and do it. It failed so bad, and he holds himself responsible for that. So when he did Resident Evil and it did well, the next one did pretty good, and then it slowly started to decrease, he didn't want to stop because he didn't want to feel that same guilt of having a franchise fall because of another director. So that's something that you should keep in mind when the Resident Evil movies came out, or when you watch them now and you say, why didn't he just not direct? It's because he feels guilt about this next movie and that he wasn't a part of it. And that next movie is Mortal Kombat Annihilation. Now, this came out in 1997, November of 97, from New Line Cinema. Folks, if you have heard anything about this movie, you know that this was a giant step down from the first movie. This movie the story is somewhat similar to the game. This is a movie where Shao Kahn wants to invade Earthrealm. He wants to skip the Mortal Kombat fights and just go straight for an invasion. That is very Mortal Kombat 3, which I love. So that idea is great. However, again, the execution of this, like the other movies on this list earlier, it just fumbles. When they could have done something similar to the first one, where there's a lot of introduction to new characters, how they all play into each other, It doesn't. It honestly feels like every scene is its own movie. We're just sharing characters. The cast is kind of different, but they play the same characters. Robin Shaw was back. Talisa Soto, who played Katana, is back. Then we have Sandra Hess. Sandra Hess plays Sonia, not Brigitte Wilson. And James Remar plays Raiden, not Christopher Lambert. So some came back, some didn't. I will admit, though, if I've watched Mortal Kombat 100 times, I've watched this probably 50. I know this is a bad movie. I'm not saying it isn't. I would be lying to everybody if I went, no, this is good. It's a bad movie. The CG is horrible. The costumes are okay. There are certain characters you can obviously tell they spent more time on than others. Baraka makes an appearance in this movie, looks abysmal. Rain makes an appearance in this and is abysmal. If you've ever seen the epic ending with the animalities of Shao Kahn and Liu Kang, they look terrible. It's so bad. Crystal, I'm glad you don't remember this. I possibly would make you sit through this, but I won't, because you'll be like, no, I'm gonna lose my mind if I watch this movie. There are spheres in this movie that it takes two combatants to use these spheres, and hot air and the Earth's crust moves them. But in order to move them, you have to stand like this face to face with each other and sort of thrust yourself. Like, weird choices like that. Raiden gets a buzz cut for some reason. You probably saw it once and don't remember a single thing about it. You're one of the lucky ones. The fights are mostly short. I'm bored just listening to you explain it. I'm sorry, but we have to talk about it. It's the ending is the epic CG fight. Go check it out on YouTube after this, because from what I've read and what I've heard, there again was a ton of production issues, a ton of ideas that were cut, scrapped. This does feel like there's a lot of studio meddling in this, that they wanted to add things, they wanted to cut things, budget constraints, budget increases for certain things. It's overall, it's a mess. And there are not many movies that I love that are this much of a mess. I'm that big of a Mortal Kombat fan that I'm okay with this. Hated Borderlands. I can deal with this, though. But yes, as I said, this wasn't directed by Paul W.S. Anderson like the original. Do I think he could have saved it? No. This was just a long series of messes, and there is an individual who was a part of the original team to talk to Midway at the time, who owned the Mortal Kombat license. He wanted to really push Mortal Kombat into the main world of everything. Like, he talked to them about wanting to do a movie. He wanted to do an album. He wanted to do a stage show, which there was a live stage show. He wanted to do comics. He wanted to do novels. He wanted to do everything with this license. And he accomplished a lot of it. 95% of it failed, but he did want to try a lot. And he played a part in this, and from what I've read, he had a lot of influence on what this movie turned out to be. And it's sad. It's sad that this really did, I don't want to say killed the video game movie franchises, but really did. Like, this whole, they had 4 movies in the 90s, and this was the end. And it wasn't until many, many years later that an indie director made a bunch of short films for YouTube that really got the world going, okay, we can do Mortal Kombat again. And those turned into the last Mortal Kombat movie, which turned into what will be soon to be the next Mortal Kombat movie. I'm glad they're taking their time. I'm glad they're working on it because this was just a nightmare. And taking 2 years to film this, it felt like you took 2 months. It felt so rushed and so all over the place. So that is it for tonight. We went through Mortal Kombat Annihilation, Mortal Kombat 1, Street Fighter, Double Dragon, and the Super Mario Brothers movie. Folks, I appreciate that you are still here. I know I probably put you to sleep with that last one, but we needed to talk about it because it is such a bad movie. I appreciate you all being here. If you can hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. It means a lot to me. I know you guys love these 90 things, these 90 movies and music and comic books and all that. So we're probably going to do more of those. In fact, next week, we're going to do another 90s, and we're going to talk all about 90s comic book movies. We got a bunch to get through, so we're probably not going to take too much time on each one, but we've got Barbed Wire for all you guys out there. We've got Captain America from the 90s, not the Chris Evans one. We've got Darkman, we've got Judge Dredd, we've got Spawn, Steel, TMNT, and The Crow. Folks, I hope you have a great week. I can't wait to see you guys next week. Probably going to be live this week doing a little bit of cosplaying. I'm working on Mr. Red Skull over there and a whole lot more, folks. Have yourselves a great week. I love you all. And I will see you next week for another episode of Monday Night Nerd. Love you all. See you soon.
Hey, thanks for watching Monday Night Nerd. If you enjoyed this content, please hit the subscribe button, like this content, and follow on social media for even more nerdy fun. See you soon.